All right, we're almost halfway through the 2020s, so I thought I would recommend my top 50 favorite albums of the decade so far. I will be putting a Spotify screenshot over here with all the relevant info, and I'll just have one of my favorite songs from each album playing in the image, so you can check that out as kind of like a sample if you're curious. Also, I'm limiting this list to one album per artist, so let's take a moment of silence for all the amazing music that got pushed out of this list because of that. Okay, now let's get into the list. Starting with number 50, which is Glow On by Turnstile. This album kicks ass. At number 49, I've got Leanne LaHavis with her self-titled album. This is a lovely soul record. At number 48, I've got Porter Robinson with Smile. This is a healthy dose of his life-affirming electronic type music, and I absolutely love it. At number 47, I've got Chappell Roan with The Rise and Fall of a Midwest Princess. This one took me a while to warm to. It's some very sugary pop music, but I think it's pretty solid. At number 46, I've got It's Sorted by Cheekface. This is some very cheeky, silly, fun, comedic rock music. At number 45 is Model Actress with Dog's Body. This is some very dark, gritty, visceral dance punk, and I love it. At number 44 is Everything Harmony by the Lemon Twigs. This is two brothers doing soft rock revivalism just right. At number 43, I have an album called Monarch of Monsters by an artist who calls herself Violet Pony. Yes, if you don't feel inclined to take this artist seriously, I wouldn't blame you. I had the same thought when I first heard about this, but then I listened to the album and I was blown away to discover that this is a highly ambitious noise rock album with elements of like pop, electronic music, and even post-rock all kind of blended together, and somehow it works. It amazes me. At number 42, I've got Hostile Architecture by Ashenspire. Black metal with saxophones, anyone? At number 41, I've got Clipping, Visions of Bodies Being Burned. This is some very dark horrorcore rap that goes pretty hard, also has some pretty spacey, abstract elements to it. It's pretty cool. At number 40, I've got Call Me If You Get Lost by Tyler, the Creator. The summer vibes abound on this record. At number 39, I've got People Who Aren't There Anymore by Future Islands. This is just a really solid synth pop album. At number 38, I've got Cave World by Viagra Boys. And some of the political elements on this album have not aged the best, but this is still one of the best punk albums of the decade. It kicks ass. At number 37, I've got God Don't Make Mistakes by Conway the Machine. This is a very gritty, almost like gangster rap album. Not the kind of thing I would usually like, but Conway just does it so well. At number 36, I've got What's Your Pleasure, which is a very smooth and sensual album from the modern queen of disco, Jessie Ware. At number 35, I've got Yola with Stand For Myself. This is a mixture of R&B, pop, and country that is just candy to my ears. At number 34, I've got I Love You, Jennifer B. by the very bizarrely named duo Jockstrap. This is a wonderfully creative and lively art pop album that I enjoyed quite a bit. At number 33, I've got Carnage, which is a great album from Nick Cave and his longtime collaborator, Warren Ellis. And on this album, they kind of play with the Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds very melancholy sound, and there's a lot of very alien-sounding songs on this album. At number 32, I've got The New Abnormal, which is a great collection of songs by The Strokes. At number 31, I've got Petrodragonic Apocalypse by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. This is just straight thrash metal and somewhat prog metal fire just from front to back. At number 30, I've got Hypochondriac by Brakence, or Brackens, however you pronounce it. This is one of the catchiest, best produced, and best performed hyperpop albums in recent years. At number 29, I've got Friends That Break Your Heart, a sad album from James Blake. At number 28, I've got Bright Future, which is a very moving and lovely folk album from Adrienne Lenker of Big Thief. At number 27, I've got 93696. This is a ridiculously avant-garde, weird, symphonic black metal album. It's definitely not going to be for everyone, but if those genres sound interesting to you, then check it out. You'll probably love it. At number 26, I've got Imaginal Disc, and Magdalena Bay pulls out all the stops on their synth pop sound on this one, and it is just great. Very rewarding. And now we're entering the top half of the list, starting with The Weeknd, After Hours, at number 25. And this is The Weeknd in top form. In my opinion, it's his best batch of songs on an album to date. He kind of mixes his old-fashioned, moody R&B sound with a newer, for him, sound of this kind of retro 70s synth pop, and it goes over really well. At number 24, I've got Knock Area and Con as well from Maruja. And these guys have only released 2 EPs over the course of the last 5 years, but they're both so good that I thought I'd just bundle them and include them as one entry. Maruja are kind of in the crest of this modern UK symphonic rock wave with bands like Black Country New Road and Black Midi and whatnot. And yeah, with songs like Thunder and Invisible Man and the lovely Resisting Resistance, they kind of have proven themselves to be one of the best bands to do it. At number 3, I've got Ethiops by Billy Woods. This is a dark, abstract, and lyrically dense odyssey from one of the best rappers working today. At number 22, I've got Only God Was Above Us by Vampire Weekend. This is a wonderful indie rock album with these elements of like Baroque classical music mixed in. As down as some of the lyrics are across the album, it really is a vibe. Like it's a vibe. And I love it for that. At number 21 is the beautiful, spiritual Lahai by Sampha. This is like a cleansing experience to listen to. From one of the best singers, one of the best voices working in like neo-soul music today. It's absolutely lovely. Listen to it. At number 20, I've got GNX, of course, from the great Kendrick Lamar. And if anyone was doubting that Kendrick Lamar is the greatest rapper working today, this album should lay all of those doubts to rest because it is just bangers from front to back. It might not be as dense or lyrically complex and layered as something like To Pimp a Butterfly or Good Kid, Mad City, but I think it's his best album since those records, and it's so good. At number 19 is You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To. This is a very heavy album from metalcore breakdown enthusiasts Knocked Loose. And there are no melodic sections on this album. There's no moments of like rest. There are some like eerie non-metal sections, but that's the closest to any sense of calm we get here. This is just basically brutal, harsh, heavy music from front to back, and it absolutely kicks ass. At number 18, I've got Desire, I Want to Turn Into You by Caroline Polachek. This is a really wonderful art pop album. It's full of touching verses, soaring choruses, and really great musical compositions. It's rare that pop music sounds this good. At number 17, I've got By the Time I Get to Phoenix by Injury Reserve. And I saw someone online call this the first post-rap album, and I think that's a great description of how this album sounds. It's so spacey and fragmented and abstract at times that it's hard to even call it music sometimes. And that for that reason, it took me a while to really warm to it. But now that I have, I think it's one of the best rap albums of the decade. It's just so unbelievably ambitious and out there. At number 16, I've got The Flaming Lips with American Head. This is a beautiful, emotionally potent psychedelic rock album that kind of touches on themes surrounding like youth, drug use, mortality, and those are a very effective mixture that kind of just get me in the feels every time I listen to it. At number 15, I've got Circles, the posthumous album from Mac Miller. And what an incredible send-off this album is. Musically, this album is a very peaceful, serene, neo-soul album. Lyrically, it's very moving, especially now that Mac is gone, because of just the kind of existential ideas that he touches on in the lyrics. Overall, I think it's a very peaceful album to listen to. It's a very calming experience. At number 14, I've got The Forever Story by JID. JID is one of the most talented up-and-coming rappers today, and this album is a good dose of everything he has to offer. The energy, the flows, the top-notch beats make this easily one of the best rap albums of the decade. Hell, even the singing is good. Like, this man is an incredibly talented artist. At number 13 is Marchita by Silvana Estrada. This is a stunning chamber folk album. At number 12 is Did You Know That There's a Tunnel Under Ocean Boulevard, a very verbose title for a very verbose album from Lana Del Rey. This has slowly but surely become my favorite Lana album, with all of these, like, smoke-shrouded pianos and these gorgeous string sections and very memorable melodies. There's a few songs that are skips, but they are way outnumbered by the good songs. Yeah, number 12 is this Lana album. At number 11 is De Todas las Flores. I hope I'm pronouncing that somewhat correctly. And this is an album from the lovely Mexican singer Natalia Lafourcade. And she hits us here with a collection of some very beautiful slow cuts, as well as like danceable, faster ones. And yeah, it's great stuff. I absolutely love it. And now we're on to the top 10, starting with Javelin, which is a painfully beautiful, or maybe beautifully painful, album from Sufjan Stevens. The album kind of seems to deal with themes of loss and grief and loneliness, but even on the less painful, more upbeat songs, the music is still great. A lot of the sounds that Sufjan has played with throughout his career kind of come together on this one, which make it a very full, very dense experience. And I think this will go down as definitely one of the best records that this man has ever put out. At number 9 is Scrapyard by Quedeca. This album sounds like it was assembled from some kind of musical scrapyard. It's got songs like Guess Who, which is like a hip-hop banger, but it's also got songs like Under My Skin, which is an abstract piece of emo music, and it's got Texas Blue, which has like acoustic guitars and flutes. Usually I would complain about an album being this chaotic and all over the place, but there's a few reasons that this one works when most albums like this don't. And for starters, the scrapyard theme is kind of the thing that ties everything together. And so there's a kind of chaotic energy to it that I like. But it's not just chaos for the sake of chaos. Quedeca very much knows what he's doing and is very much in control of what he's doing. It feels like he's kind of invented a new genre over the course of these last few albums that he's been doing, and he does it better here than he has ever before, in my opinion. Most importantly, though, the songs are just really good. At number 8 is Sinner Get Ready. This is the last album from Kristen Hayter under the Lingua Ignota moniker. And this is not an upbeat listen, but it is an epic statement from one of the most impressive voices in modern music. And when I say impressive voice, I mean that. I mean, Kristen's voice on this album is like a weapon of mass destruction. This album explores themes of resentment, trauma, abuse, and religion. These are all things that she explored on her previous album, Caligula, which I personally think is even more impressive than this one. But here she takes those ideas and puts them to music that is much less abrasive and more just generally melancholy. At number 7 is Miles by Blue in Exile. This is an incredible collaboration from rapper Blue and producer Exile. These two go together like peanut butter and jelly. They just bring out the best in each other. The rich, creative, jazz-infused production mixed with the very honest bars from Blue and just the absolute quantity of good material on this album make this my favorite rap album of the decade. The cover art gives you everything you need to know about this album. The color palette gives you an idea of the earthy tone of the music. The giant tree with this network of exposed roots gives you an idea of how the album goes back and explores the past experiences that make a person who they are. And of course, Blue in Exile standing there finish off the picture. Once it starts to get warm out, I highly recommend people go and listen to this album because it's a perfect summer listen. At number 6, I've got Punisher by Phoebe Bridgers. Don't be put off by the title. This has nothing to do with the brutal vigilante from Marvel Comics. In fact, it couldn't be further from that. This album kind of feels like a warm blanket. It's the kind of thing that you can fall asleep to, but in the best way possible. The indie tracks are serene, subtle, and tasteful. The rock songs are great. And it has one of the best closing tracks of the decade that just beautifully ties it all together. The lyrics paint this picture of this lost, broken person who's just trying to live the best that they can. Phoebe's songwriting is very surreal and abstract, and yet also, at the same time, very, blunt and descriptive. I absolutely love it. Now we're getting into the top 5, and up until this point, most of the albums on this list have had skips or subpar songs that I maybe don't love, but with these top 5, you really can't go wrong. There's no skips, no bad tracks on any of these. This is just all great from here on out. Starting with number 5, which is Hellfire by Black Midi. This is another one where the cover art is a pretty great summation of what the album sounds like. It's very dark, chaotic, but also theatrical and big. The constant, just chaotic, atonal guitars mixed with the proggy drumming make for a great foundation for the avant-garde jazz fusion elements that come in over top of it. The frontman Jordy Griep is absolutely insane. His spoken word vocal performances are absolutely just mentally disturbed, and the lyrics go in crazy directions that you would never expect. This is a lot to take in, and a lot of people aren't going to love it, but whatever you might say about Black Midi, you can't deny that Hellfire is this band in top form. At number 4 is Brat from the great Charli XCX, and this is an album about duality. It's got synth pop bangers where Charli is flexing this party girl persona, but it's also got these much more personal tracks where she's diving into these insecurities and stuff. Even within songs, this dichotomy shows up where you'll have music that is club all the way, but lyrics that are a little bit more reserved. But whether it's going hard or getting a little bit more vulnerable, every song on this album works. It's just hit after hit after hit. I still slightly prefer Charli's 2019 album, but this is my favorite pop album of this decade so far, so yeah, that's something. At number 3, I've got Ant from Up There by Black Country New Road. This is kind of a predictable pick for a list like this, but it's predictable for a reason, because the album is great. This is the more mellow and melodic cousin to Black Midi's Hellfire, where these two bands have kind of been in competition almost throughout the 2020s for who can put out better music. And for me, Black Country New Road has always been just slightly ahead of Black Midi in terms of just putting out the best stuff. They put out their debut back in 2021, which is a great album, but it's got nothing on this one. The lyrics on this album are very dense, obscure, and nerdy, but if you dig into them, they turn out to be actually quite touching and rewarding. The songs focus on themes surrounding infatuation as well as heartbreak in one of the most unique ways that I've ever seen. Isaac Wood was truly a one-of-a-kind vocalist and lyricist, and it's a shame that he left the band right after this album. Hopefully he's doing well now. Similar to that Vampire Weekend album, the lyrics here are very down most of the time, but the music has this kind of warm glow to it that feels like coming into a warm house after a long day out in the cold. The rock crescendos are hard-hitting, the jazz elements are played to perfection. This is a great album from one of the greatest names in rock music today. At number 2, I've got The Turning Wheel by Spelling. This is basically like a Disney princess movie soundtrack for adults. The first half is very light, where the second half is a little bit darker and more serious, But despite that, it never stops feeling like a walk through the enchanted forest. Aside from being charmed by its overall atmosphere, I'm also just impressed by the amount of detail that Cristia Cabral put into these songs, and also just the amount of different genres that come together on these songs to form this sound that she's pioneered here. This album is like a walled garden full of beauty, variety, and complexity that deserves to be explored. And now we're at number 1. And my pick for number 1 is easily one of the most personal picks on this list. I mean, all of these picks are personal, but this one is especially personal. I'll just get to it. At number 1 is Panopticon's black metal masterpiece, And Again Into the Light. And the reason I say this is one of the most personal picks on the list is because you could find other albums on this list that are objectively better, that are maybe more well-made, more ambitious, certainly have higher sound quality, but no other album on this list has touched my soul in the way that this album has. I know it's cliche to say, but this album kind of takes me on a journey. It starts in a very despondent place on the opener, and then it just goes deeper into depression on the following few tracks, until it gets to a point on Moth-Eaten Soul where it goes so dark and so heavy that it goes beyond black metal and basically becomes like a death metal song. But then from there, on the last leg of the album, it kind of draws you back out of that again into the light. And this is all conveyed with almost no words, because there are only a couple sections on the album where you can actually understand what's being said. For most of the album, the lyrics are just completely drowned out by the chaos of the music, and there's no lyric sheets. And I used to be bothered by that, but now I actually think that the fact the lyrics are drowned out by the music is actually part of the experience that Austin is trying to convey with this album, and it's a powerful experience. It's my number 1 of the decade so far. With that said, thanks for watching. Be sure to put your favorites down in the comments below, and I will see you in the next review.